Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a powerful climbing team in the Open Master League centered around Dialga Origin form. Dialga in its standard form, it's been Master League meta for years. The Origin form has a lower attack stat, but it has higher defense. And today I'm making the argument that if you're save switching a Dialga, due to that higher defense, the Origin form is actually preferred. The team is a very standard one: Kyogre lead, Dialga Origin save switch, and Zacian as the closer. I'll be showcasing battles that were done at Leaderboard Elo, but first we're going to be showcasing a great example of why Dialga Origin is so deadly on the save switch. Kyogre is met with a terrible lead in the first match leading into Gyarados. The save switch into the Dialga Origin immediately met with Therian Landorus. Landorus lands the Sand Sear Storm, and this is where being the Dialga Origin is a lot better. Due to the higher defense on Dialga Origin, Mud Shots from Landorus do 5 damage instead of 6 on the regular. So whereas the Landorus can farm down a regular Dialga after landing a Sand Sear, versus Dialga Origin, they're unable to farm down. They're forced to throw a second Sand Sear like this opponent does here, or they're forced to give up a second shield as I'm able to make it to a second Iron Head. So they leave with a lot less energy than they typically would. I can send in Zacian. Zacian is going to be up a shield. I still have some HP remaining on my Kyogre because they didn't leave with a lot of energy. They go for the Aqua Tail. They're staying in, so it seems like they are weak, and I'm just going to full send the Wild Charge. Opponent tries to call a Play Rough, hoping that I was Play Rough close combat, but I'm not. And in the back, it's Zygarde, so this is a very clean win from here for my Zacian. Play Rough is going to do some solid damage, going for Play Rough number 2, and yeah, my opponent just doesn't have enough charge attacks to get through these 2 shields, so they are just going to let this through. And once Dialga Origin baits out Lando, forces it to throw twice, it ends up being a pretty straightforward endgame. Terrible lead in the next match, Kyogre into Palkia. I save switch into Dialga Origin, and if you notice, my opponent has to stay in that matchup and take some super effective damage before they switch into Landorus. Because they know if they switch into Landorus right away, we saw what happened last game. They're unable to farm down, so my opponent is forced to stay in and take some pretty significant damage on that Palkia before they end up switching out. So now the Palkia is already in a range where I can knock out with a Play Rough from the Zacian later in the match. I can send in Kyogre. Kyogre, I'm basically just using as a damage sponge in this matchup. As you may have noticed, in Battle 1, I was running Blizzard. I ended up switching to Blizzard later on. Most of these battles, I'll be using Origin Pulse. For this current meta, I do think that Blizzard is better, just because it gives you a lot more flexibility if you end up in an endgame versus the Dragons. In the back, they have their own Zacian, but I'm up energy, I'm up a shield, and I have Best Buddy boost equipped, and since they don't, I can guarantee that I'm going to win the CMP tie over my opponent every single time in this matchup. The Play Rough is going to be shielded. I'm going to farm up, go for the Wild Charge as they make it to their close combat. They have a choice to make. Do they burn the final shield? No, they let it through. In comes the Palkia. I will fire off the Wild Charge. This is only neutral damage, but if this lands, then I can probably finish off this game with a Surf from the Kyogre if need be. So I will commit the shield as I am quad debuffed on my defense, looking to bank some energy, send in the Kyogre, and fire off the Surf. I'm not in a range where an Aqua Tail from Palkia is going to be able to knock out my Zacian. I made sure to stay outside of Aqua Tail range, so I should be okay here. They should be able to make it to the double Aqua Tail, one to knock out Kyogre and one to land on the Zacian, but importantly, I'm not in Aqua Tail range, so they would need back-to-back moves here. The Aqua Tail is not going to be enough to KO, and the Quick Attack will secure the win. Moving into the next match, hitting Kyogre into another Palkia. Oh my goodness. I save switch into Dialga, my opponent responds with a Xerneas. I'm going to look to massively overfarm and wait for my opponent to throw first. I can survive whatever they throw, so I'm going to let it go. They're at the back-to-back close combats. Close combat number 1 connects. They don't throw back-to-back, so I'm going to be able to grab a shield with the Iron Head. The Iron Head forces the first shield from my opponent, and now I have a choice. I can choose to shield and get their final shield back, or I can let it go. I decide I'm thinking that Zacian will probably be better in the 1 shield to 0 situation, so I am actually going to play for my opponent's final shield, even if it does mean that I'm giving up a massive farm down to the Xerneas. Xerneas exits with energy, but they are going to be debuffed here, taking these waterfalls. The Moonblast connects. They get the Moonblast debuff. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. That's a 10% chance. I think it's the 3rd time in 2 days that's happened to me. I send in the Zacian. They're going to send in Mewtwo. Mewtwo farming up a lot of energy. Mewtwo at the back-to-back Psy Strikes. Mewtwo does win charge attack priority, but I need to throw my move right away, because if I don't, then they're going to be able to get 2 side strikes off, and I'm just getting KO'd. So I am going to throw here, so I will be 4 stages debuffed on my defense. However, I'm still very healthy. In comes the Palkia. Palkia will be able to make an Aqua Tail. The question is, my defense is 4 stages debuffed. Can I hang on here? The Aqua Tail connects, and I die with the move. So close, but just not enough to pick up the win. We finally see a non-awful lead, leading Kyogre into Lugia, and I'm very okay with playing this out, as my entire team does very well into Lugia. I try and throw the Origin Pulse as soon as I get it, but you may have noticed there was a frame drop in the game that forces it to be thrown on charge attack priority. Very, very unfortunate to see there, as I would have loved to Origin Pulse and then switch into the Dialga. I send in the Dialga after I get KO'd. My opponent is going to bring in their own Dialga Origin. They throw, and that tells me, since I was not at my Roar of Time, I had just gotten there, since Switch takes a turn, they are guaranteed to be 1 short of that Roar of Time, so I'm going to be able to grab the shield, and now I can send in the Zacian. For Zacian, I'm just looking to shield once, and look to overfarm by a lot, because my opponent should be pretty close to energy dry now, so I can look to farm all the way up to 100 energy, going absolutely to the cap, and Play Rough is going to be able to pick up the KO. I have a lot of energy on the Zacian. I still have a shield. It's Palkia in the back. Opponent able to get the catch onto Lugia. Beautiful prediction by my opponent. I go for the undercharge on the Play Rough, and I get the farm down. They're going to send back in the Palkia. Palkia going for the Aqua Tail, and I'm going to let this go. Aqua Tail will not knock out. I have not debuffed my defense yet. I can build up to back-to-back wild charges and have a guaranteed win con. My opponent, if they no shield, I just farm them down. If they shield, then I just send in Dialga. They can farm me down, but I have the wild charge loaded. I'm going to lose charge attack priority, but it's not going to matter because I still have a shield remaining, whereas they don't. So I can shield the Aqua Tail. They are unable to protect themselves from the damage of wild charge, and we're able to take that game. Hopping into the next match, leading Kyogre into Ho-Oh. Okay, a terrific lead. Let's go. They save switch into their own Dialga. 1 waterfall is going to connect, and I'm going to bring in my own Dialga. Having a waterfall land on the opponent's Dialga is very nice, as that way, as long as you commit shields, you can guarantee that you're going to be able to win switch advantage. I end up shielding the Iron Head, and then I go for the Roar of Time, since the Iron Head will not knock out here. Opponent is going to let that through. They can send back in the Ho-Oh. I believe I've overfarmed enough that I should be able to make it to a Roar of Time versus the Ho-Oh. In comes the Ho-Oh. I'm able to make the Roar of Time before they can make a potential Brave Bird, so this will hit for massive damage or potentially get the shield. And in this case, it gets the shield back. I send in Kyogre. They throw 1 more Incinerate, and they're going to fire off the Brave Bird. That does massive damage. In the back, it's Zygarde, and at this point, we should just have completely 1 alignment in this game, as Zacian does extremely well into Zygarde. Zacian firing off the Play Rough. We will need 2 Play Roughs to be able to knock out the Zygarde. Damage on the Zacian at this point becomes irrelevant. They can go for the Earthquake, but that's really not going to be too threatening. As long as I manage my energy well on the Zacian, and I can just farm up to 100 energy, this should just be a completely unlosable game. The Play Rough will be shielded. Interesting play from my opponent. I can shield and look to overfarm. I just have to watch for a switch. Ho-Oh does not have a move banked. They send in the Ho-Oh. I'm able to throw 2 quick attacks after they switch safely and then go for the wild charge. That's going to KO. In comes the Zygarde, and Zacian putting in a ton of work in this endgame. One of the reasons why I was interested in running Zacian on the team instead of Xerneas is in case I saw one of these flyers, I thought having the coverage could be nice. Terrible lead for Kyogre, leading into the Kyurem. I save switch into the Origin Dialga, and in comes the Landorus, so we get to see it once again. Landorus has a pretty good matchup going up against the Zacian, so being able to bait it out so the Zacian doesn't have to see it is quite nice. And since they didn't stay in to do meaningful Dragon Breath damage, look at this. They're not going to be able to farm down. I would be able to make an Iron Head, so they're forced to fire off another Sandsear. So I get the shield advantage. I force them to throw 2 Sandsears, and now I can bring in the Kyogre and hopefully set up my Zacian for a sweep. I'm expecting it's Ho-Oh in the back. I send in, oh boy, I send in the Zacian, but it's Solgaleo in the back, and I've just been triple hard countered. Let's see what we can do here, though. I do have an energy advantage, and I have a shield advantage, and Wild Charge does add up. I go for Wild Charge number 1. and immediately followed by Wild Charge number 2, I'm able to force the final shield. My defense is as low as it can go, so these Psychic Fangs are actually not going to lower my defense because my defense cannot get any lower than it already is. I commit the shield as they go for another Psychic Fangs. I make the Wild Charge. They're at another Psychic Fangs. I have no more remaining shields. I switch into Kyogre, getting the catch and getting the Waterfall through. Does the Waterfall knock out here? It does not. They survive on 1 HP. Back in comes the Kyurem. I go for the Origin Pulse. This is a situation where I'd love Blizzard, but unfortunately I couldn't make it to a Blizzard. They're going to get a farm down. And it all comes down to this. If I can make a Wild Charge, I should have the game won. Glaciate connects. That will not knock out. Zacian cannot get to the Wild Charge. Although the fact that we were triple hard countered and made it this close, in my view, is the hallmark of a pretty successful team. Moving to the next match, Kyogre into Zygarde. The entire team has neutral to positive play. I save switch into the Dialga. I met not with the Landorus that I was expecting, but with a Solgaleo. This matchup is a lot better for the Dialga Origin, not due to any defense bulk point, but just due to the fact that Roar of Time does not lower your attack, whereas Draco Meteor does. They're running Flamethrower, which means that I'm not going to be able to force a shield, as they're going to be able to go for a Psychic Fangs, and after that, the next Fire Spin will be able to knock out before I make it to the Iron Head. In comes Kyogre. Kyogre just able to get that farm down. Now the question will be, do they send back in the Zygarde? If they do, I think I just send in the Zacian and see what they have. And it's Landorus in the back. Opponent has the best buddy boost equipped on the Landorus. So unfortunately, another game where we've basically just been team comped here, unfortunately. I'm going to look to overfarm and go for the play rough. My opponent has every incentive to shield here. Even though I'm debuffed, keeping the Landorus healthy should serve them quite well. I decide to commit a shield back. I am pretty close to a move on Kyogre, so being able to stall the clock would be pretty nice for me. My opponent obviously doesn't know that I don't have Blizzard. This is another situation facing a Zygarde where endgame, being able to have access to a move like Blizzard would be very clutch. I decide to commit the shield. I'm going to farm up, and I get the catch onto Kyogre. Okay. This is a very, very big catch. I'm debuffed, but I have saved the Zacian. If I have Blizzard, I can pretty comfortably win the game here, but I don't have Blizzard, and that's a complicating factor. They go for a crunch. That's not going to be enough to KO. I make it to Blizzard. Oh my goodness. I make it to Blizzard Energy. I go for the Origin Pulse. They play to a charge attack priority tide that they do not win. And in doing so, they've just opened the door to me winning this game. And I overfarm the perfect amount, as the Landorus should not have energy, so I need to overfarm to a point where I can reach it within 4 quick attacks. In this instance, I get there in 3, so the opponent, fearful of a Blizzard, plays to a CMP tide that they do not win, and a game that looked completely lost, we're able to salvage a win. Leading Kyogre into Zacian. Every Zacian is running Wild Charge at this point, so I am expecting that I'm going to be taking a lot of damage here from Wild Charge. I decide to commit the shield and protect the Kyogre. They send in their own Dialga, and I send in mine. I'm down energy, which means they make the Draco before I make the Roar of Time. I'm down a shield. I'm expecting them to full send, so I will commit the shield, and it is the Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor is going to lower their attack. I'm forced to fire off an Iron Head because I'm not going to be able to make a farm down before they make another Draco and knock me out. They're just taking the 2-shield advantage. They send in Lugia, and this is a bit awkward. I build up a lot of energy. I decide to full send the Roar of Time at the Lugia. Lugia commits the shield. Can I make it to another move? I just barely make it to the Iron Head right before they're able to get the knockout. Iron Head is going to connect onto the Lugia. They have a lot of energy on Lugia, which is a bit uncomfortable. I'm going to send in the Zacian. Zacian can survive an Aeroblast. We'll have to see how this goes. If they send in their own Zacian, then I need to switch into Kyogre because I have a ton of energy stored. So I fire off the Surf. Surf will be no shield, but they call that I don't go for the Origin Pulse. Oh my goodness. Wild Charge, that's going to get me low. There, my opponent is able to get the farm down, but now I farm down with my own Zacian. It's going to be a race. Can I get to the double Wild Charge? And I am just short. I do not have the back-to-back here, but they have the Sky Attack. I fall just short. Oh man. I think I just need to not shield Kyogre on the lead, and that game could have gone quite a bit better. All in all, I think that this is a very good team if people are looking to climb in the current Open Master League. And I believe that it's a very good showcase as to the value of Dialga Origin, specifically on the safe switch. I think it just outperforms the standard Dialga. The standard Dialga can be very helpful, especially in the mirror, because you just guarantee win charge attack priority over the Origin Dialga due to having the higher attack. But having that higher defense when you're going up against Landorus specifically can be very advantageous, and it makes opponents, their play pattern, not as clear. They can't just blindly switch a Landorus into a Dialga without being forced to throw twice or having to commit 2 shields. So I do think there's a definite advantage to safe switching the Dialga Origin. There can be a variety of thirds used on the team. Your main goal is you want something that's decently flexible that does not want to see the Landorus. And if you do run Kyogre, I think at the current moment, Blizzard is just better. Blizzard gives Kyogre extra flexibility that Origin Pulse just doesn't provide. So I do think that endgame, especially in this like ABB style team where Kyogre is often farming things down and having energy in the endgame, I do think Blizzard is a bit preferred. I did end up TMing off Origin Pulse. It hurt my soul to TM away that legacy move. If I need it in the future, I guess I'll have to use an Elite TM. But I'm hopeful that Blizzard is going to pay dividends for the remainder of this Master League rotation. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.